Hi, my name is Haseeb Fatmi. I'm running for Wake Forest Board of Regents. I'd have to say the walkability and the people. The reason that my wife and I moved to Wake Forest is because we decided this is where we want to plant our roots. This is where we want to raise our family. This is a place that we want our future kids to want to come back to, our future grandkids to want to come back to. Everything is very accessible. We can walk downtown and just hang out with like shops and restaurants. And also the people here are very much a tight-knit and very kind and compassionate community. It's a place where we feel comfortable and we feel safe and we feel happy to choose to raise our family. So aside from working and doing this, and aside from teaching, I do a lot of volunteer work. There are a number of organizations that I've been volunteering with for a long time. On top of that, I'm really into outdoor activities. My wife and I are both archers. We're both snowboarders. We swim in the summer. We go snowboarding in the winter. I'm a runner. So I've been training for Spartan races, and I'm trying to do 3 this year. I did 2 so far, so the next one is coming up in November. I've always been involved in volunteer work and civic engagement ever since I was a kid. That's always been a really big priority to me. In my spare time, I've always tried to find ways to volunteer to make the community better. I think that running for office is just a logical next step in doing that. And I think it's so important at the municipal level because grassroots municipal government is so important in affecting the daily lives of the people who live here. When we talk about like federal and state government and things like that, it's very important, but it's very broad. It's not really boots on the ground. When we talk about municipal government, these are the actual specific issues that are affecting people on a day-to-day basis. And I want to be in a position where I can affect those changes in a positive way to help my neighbors, help my community. So the top change is definitely on overdevelopment. For example, just yesterday, I was canvassing, and the top issue people are talking about, concerned about, is the rampant urban sprawl, rapid growth, and urban development. The communications that I've seen from the town are leaning towards helping developers clear-cut build developments without consideration of residents, and I don't think that's okay. So the number one change I want to see is reining in that overdevelopment, reining in that urban sprawl, and making sure that instead of investing in a way to benefit just big companies and developers, we invest in a way that actually controls the growth in a thoughtful way and benefits our residents. That includes things like improving infrastructure. The second is conservation. We are in the Neuse River Basin. We have a lot of natural resources. And I mean, we're named Wake Forest, right? We are a forest. But unfortunately, we're seeing a lot of clear cutting. And this sort of goes with the development issue, but we're seeing a lot of clear cutting, and especially in places that are dangerously close to our green spaces and our natural resources. I want to see those areas protected. The third issue is equity and accessibility. I talk about this concept of a walkable Wake Forest. I want to make sure Wake Forest is walkable and accessible to everyone. And one example of that is I want to make sure that our buildings, our sidewalks, our streets, our greenway, they are wheelchair accessible, right? Because persons with impairments and disabilities should have the right to enjoy Wake Forest just as much as everyone else. But a wheelchair accessible Wake Forest is also a stroller accessible Wake Forest. And so I'm keeping in mind, we have young families with kids who should also be able to access Wake Forest. Accessibility also means affordability to me. There are musings of putting a toll road on Capitol Boulevard, increasing other fees and things like that to pay for development, and I am absolutely against that. I think that a lot of people are getting priced out of Wake Forest, and that's not okay. What we need to do is focus on making sure that existing residents aren't priced out of their homes. So keeping costs affordable, keeping housing affordable, and just keeping the town accessible to everyone. A couple of things. So I think that my legal background is a really big boon. So I've been an attorney and a litigator for 13 years. And I'm also a law professor. So I teach trial advocacy at Campbell. And I'm also a legislative chair on the North Carolina Bar Association. As a candidate for commissioner, I'm asking to be a lawmaker. And as a lawmaker, I think that our elected officials need to have the knowledge and the expertise to understand the laws, know the existing laws, know what's coming down the pipeline, but also know how to navigate them and read them and apply them and properly interpret them. Second, I think that I'm uniquely qualified for Board of Commissioners because I grew up here. I was born in the Triangle, and as I grew up, I saw Wake Forest grow. When I was a kid, Wake Forest had a population of 20,000. It's tripled since then. So I've gotten to see Wake Forest grow firsthand. I've lived Wake Forest growing firsthand. And as someone who's lived in the Triangle, someone who was born in the Triangle and grew up here, I think that there are unique characteristics and unique challenges that we face. And those are things that I've seen firsthand. I try and use what time I have to volunteer in my community. And there are a number of organizations that I've tried to dedicate my time to in order to improve the community. One of them is Capital Area Teen Court, which is through the Wake County Center for Juvenile Justice. That's an organization that I've been volunteering for literally 25 years. Another organization that I've been volunteering with is Wake Forest Indivisible. And the big campaign that we're working on right now is a Know Your Rights campaign. I also do a lot of pro bono work. So I do civil rights litigation. I'm on the pro bono panels for the federal courts. And so I try and do a lot of pro bono work with my law license. Really taking two very specific approaches. One is a top-down view of it, and then one is a case-by-case view of specific developments. Overall, the main thing is closely looking at proposed developments and making sure we don't just rubber stamp the developments that are proposed and taken to the planning board or the Board of Commissioners. Things like clear-cutting random swaths of land and then just building tons and tons of houses without consideration of the neighbors and the residents in the community and then leaving. I am against all of that. So what I want to see is a more critical view of the planned developments that we get, working with developers to make sure they do what they're supposed to, take all of the studies they're supposed to, conservation analyses, traffic analyses, and things like that. I want to see more mixed use development. I think that the overemphasis on building densely populated areas of just apartments and just condos and just townhouses between existing neighborhoods does not make sense, especially when there's no consideration of where all of that traffic goes. So I'm against that. As we get new proposed developments, I want to see less density. I want to see more mixed use. I want to see more conservation and preservation analyses. I want to see more green spaces. I want to see more walkability. I want developers to actually commit to developing the areas and the infrastructure around. One solution that's easy to say but very difficult to execute, and we've been trying to do it, is working with NCDOT to actually complete our road plans. We as a town have been working with the NCGA, the North Carolina General Assembly, and the North Carolina Department of Transportation to actually improve and make good on the commitments they've made to improve like Capitol Boulevard. That project is now fully funded. I want to see that it gets done, and a lot of that is going to be working directly with the NCDOT to make sure we can do that. In addition to just improving the roads, we have to consider improving traffic flow. So it's not just how many cars are on the street, but it's the efficiency by which one car can get to point A to point B. So that's what we call traffic flow. And there are different tools that we have in order to do that, like right-of-ways and turns, turn lanes, and so on. I want to see those being developed and being put into our plans. There's also another initiative that I've been talking to others about, and specifically one of the commissioners, about fixing our traffic lights, and specifically working with NCDOT to use AI to sync up our traffic lights so that if you hit a red light, you're not hitting every single red light. That's another way to encourage traffic flow, to make sure that people are getting from point A to point B, but they're on the road for a shorter period of time. Anything to alleviate the traffic and help people get from point A to point B without having to get into their cars, I think it's really important. So in Wake Forest, we're talking about building out Wake Forest's rail system, and basically connecting it like from Richmond through Wake Forest into Raleigh. And the planned development for the train station is around downtown Wake Forest. It's going to be expensive. It's going to be a very long-term plan, but I think that it's something that not only do we need now, but we're absolutely going to need it in the future. I want to tackle affordable housing with a two-pronged approach. So one prong is increasing housing supply in an affordable way, and the second prong is making sure that existing residents can actually stay in their homes and are not getting priced out and basically kicked out of their homes, kicked out of the town. As far as housing supply, that inevitably means building more. But I think that if we're going to build more houses and develop more in those directions, again, that needs to be balanced with existing residents and making sure that the burden isn't being placed on them. There's one more very specific, very nuanced issue that I have on the affordable housing topic. Part of the reason throughout North Carolina that, and I think across the nation, housing prices are going up, houses are becoming less affordable, is because we allow foreign corporations to basically buy up single-family homes and other housing units and townhouses and apartments. They take them off the market, they charge rent on them, they jack up the rent. That cuts down on the supply of affordable houses. That's not okay, and that's not fair. And there are certain legal mechanisms we can do as a municipality to try and prevent that. I want to see more of that. We don't have public microtransit, which is really tough for people going into work. You have to make a livable wage in order to be able to afford rent or afford your mortgage. And in order to do that, you need to be able to get to work. A lot of the issues that people in Wake Forest are facing boils down to the inability to access transportation to actually be able to get to work. So rather than this overemphasis on just building more places for people to live, let's build more jobs for people so that existing residents can actually earn a livable wage so that they can continue affording to live where they live. Another, I think, unique issue that a lot of our communities have been telling me about is GED access. So a lot of people, especially in lower income communities in Wake Forest, are studying and working to improve their lives, improve their families' lives. But they're telling me that they can't get to GED classes. So why not bring GED courses to areas that actually need them? That was one of the requests that some specific communities brought to me. And so that sort of access to education, access to jobs, access to transportation, I think, are key solutions that are often overlooked. And instead, the focus is more houses, more houses, more houses, which I just don't agree with. I want to see the town of Wake Forest directly assist those residents with subsidies. Unfortunately, what we're seeing, in my opinion, is efforts by the North Carolina General Assembly to restrict the ability and the rights of municipal governments to affect those types of things. That's how we're seeing those types of cuts. So not only is it going to be using our municipal powers to the extent we can to help those citizens, but also working with our local lawmakers in the General Assembly to make sure that they also pass laws in order to expand those benefits. I want to make sure that the town stays fiscally responsible. I want to see a balanced budget, and I do not want those costs to be deferred onto current residents. So there's a type of development that I call Ponzi scheme development, and it's basically this idea that we, clear cut and build these new developments, but we shift the responsibility onto the residents. So the residents have to bear that burden. More people are coming in, then we make a new development and we shift that responsibility onto all of those residents. And it just keeps going and going and going. It's not feasible, it's not sustainable, and it's not fair. So let's put a stop to that. Let's not do that. And I would oppose other types of policies that shift the financial burden onto existing residents. For example, toll roads. I'm 100% against that. And instead, what I want to see is a greater focus on commercial development so that we can bring in more jobs. Right now, as so many people in Wake Forest commute outside of Wake Forest for not only work but also recreation, that's income that is leaving Wake Forest. But if we focus on that type of growth inside of Wake Forest, we can keep it within Wake Forest. I think it's an essential responsibility of the Board of Commissioners and each commissioner to make sure that everyone's voice is being heard in the town. Wake Forest is very diverse. The Board of Commissioners is supposed to be, the grassroots neighborhood government that represents all of Wake Forest. I think that there are certain communities around Wake Forest whose voices aren't being heard, especially lower income communities. I think that commissioners need to be aware of who they're representing because they represent everyone in Wake Forest. And talk to those people, make themselves accessible, go have coffee with people, have open office hours, right? give out their phone numbers so that they can be accessible, so that they can hear everyone and advocate. So a lot of the utility services that Wake Forest receives comes from the city of Raleigh. So a lot of it is going to be working with the city of Raleigh in order to alleviate those issues. The Board of Commissioners, as town representatives, can work to influence policies to help alleviate those costs. So one example is green energy initiatives. I think that if we encourage green energy, not only on the town level, but also working with our representatives and the North Carolina General Assembly to encourage that sort of growth and innovation, I think that not only is that going to help the energy crisis, not only is that good for the environment, not only is that great for job growth, like I would love to have, green energy plants or research and development plants in Wake Forest. But we can also use those green energy solutions to keep costs low and provide alternative methods for us to get our power that aren't increasing the cost of our utility bills. I want Wake Forest to be physically walkable. That means our greenways, our sidewalks, making buildings accessible, making our parks accessible. That means conservation. I want to protect our green spaces. I want to protect our parks. I want to protect our natural resources. That means congestion. I don't want to see Wake Forest as congested as it is now. I want to alleviate that. I want to spread that out so that we can actually, enjoy Wake Forest. It's safe. I want to work with local law enforcement to make sure that we are safe actually living and working and just existing in Wake Forest. It's diversity and equity. I don't want anyone, no exceptions, I don't want anyone to be worried about living in Wake Forest or being judged for who they are or what they look like or what they believe. It's community engagement. It's mixed development. I would love to just walk out of my house, walk down the sidewalk and get a cup of coffee at my my local coffee shop. It's microtransit. Let's ride our bikes around, right? In Wake Forest, one very specific example is we've banned e-scooters and e-bikes. I don't like that. I like e-scooters. I like e-bikes. I know that a lot of people are having problems with it, but let's encourage them, but in a responsible way, so that we can use microtransit in a safe way, but a way where people can enjoy Wake Forest without having to drive all over the place. It's a development issue. Let's stop clear-cutting and overdeveloping and invest in what exists now so that our current residents and our future residents can enjoy living here. What I want to do is find solutions that are thoughtful and comprehensive. It's really easy to talk about one-size-fits-all solutions to the problems we're facing, but unfortunately, it's unrealistic. What we need to do is step back and look at the issues we're facing objectively and comprehensively, but as a town as a whole, to figure out how to, for example, accommodate the growth, fix our infrastructure, use our soft power. We're seeing an exacerbation of those issues because Wake Forest really is a great place to live. I want to keep it that way, but at the same time, take care of not only Wake Forest's present, but Wake Forest's future. We moved to Wake Forest not only because this is a place where we want to live, where we want to settle down, but we want our future kids to come back to. We want our future grandkids to come back to. And what I'm thinking as far as my vision of Wake Forest isn't just for the next 4 years, but it's for the next 40 years, 400 years.